What's up guys, Cam here, coming at you with another movie review. Now today, I'll be bringing you Captain America the Winter Soldier. Now I'm really excited to talk to you guys about this movie because it is my favorite movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. As always, I'll be giving you my review of the movie spoiler free, and then at the end I'll be giving you a spoiler alert because I will be giving you my top 5 favorite scenes out of that movie. Let's go. Captain America the Winter Soldier is directed by the Russo brothers and stars Chris Evans as Captain America, Scarlett Johansson, Samuel L. Jackson, Robert Redford. Great casting for this movie. And this movie is essentially about Captain America having to find himself again whenever everything he's ever known and everything he's ever fought for is brought into question, and some things happen that kind of force him to second guess everything he's ever done. Now this movie is a bit more grounded than your average Marvel movie. It doesn't have the big bad supervillain that has to go down at the end of the movie. It's a bit more in-depth than that. It's a bit more personal than that. And to be honest, this movie has pretty much everything that I love about action movies packed into one. It's got great characters, it's got great action, the cinematography is incredible, the pacing is great, the villains are great, everything about this movie is incredible, and I am so excited to talk to you about this movie. Let's start with the cast. Chris Evans as Captain America is just absolutely stellar. He was born to play this part. He brings the charisma, he brings the confidence, he brings the power, he brings the emotion, everything. He brings his A game to this character. Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow is Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow. What more is there to say? Scarlett Johansson is a hell of a woman. Samuel L. Jackson returns as Nick Fury in this movie, and I'm really glad that they gave him a lot more to do as a character in this movie. He has his moments where he can be an absolute badass and just basically mop the floor with the people that are trying to get him. Right off the bat, this movie introduces you to the character of Falcon, aka Sam Wilson, played by Anthony Mackie. And he really brings a good sense of humor to this character. He really brings a good grounded sense of humanity to this character. And Robert Redford as Secretary Pierce is just... what can I say about it? It is a great performance. He's a very cool, calm, collected character. And right away, in the very opening scene of this movie, it already has you hooked with great banter between the characters. Great cinematography. The sunrise in Washington, D.C. has never looked so good. And then from there, you are thrown into an action sequence that is just absolutely mind-blowing. You really get a good sense of the physicality of Captain America in this movie. You really get a good sense of his power, how superhuman he is, how strong he is, which you didn't really get a whole lot of in the Avengers, because while Captain America was given a pretty good amount of stuff to do in that movie, you didn't really get a chance to see him. You didn't really get a chance to see him do things. And the action aside, which is shot and choreographed excellently, this movie is actually a pretty good social commentary about politics in our world, and how dirty and how corrupt it can be, and everything that we don't know about that's going on behind the scenes. But even that aside, this movie is a great emotional journey into Captain America's world. You see everything around him falling apart. You see how it's affecting him, and Chris Evans portrays it flawlessly. Something that you'll notice in this movie is that he acts very much with his eyes. Sometimes he'll see something, or somebody will say something, and it's not what he says afterwards that gets you, it's the look on his face. While the dialogue is great in this movie, it's the expressions on Captain America's face that really help you start to connect with this character. And to be honest, near the end of the climax, I was almost in tears. Not a lot of movies can do that for me. Now let's talk about one of the main villains of this movie, the Winter Soldier himself. I'm not going to spoil who he is if you don't know already, although I'm pretty sure you do. If you've been following the Marvel Cinematic Universe at all, then you should know who the Winter Soldier is, but if not, I'm not going to spoil it for you. But his identity pretty much turns Captain America's whole world upside down, and he has this deep personal connection with him that really makes the movie take on a whole new meaning. I gotta tell you, the first time I saw this movie and I saw who the Winter Soldier was, my jaw dropped. I was in shock. Because I don't read the Marvel comic books. I don't know anything about the cartoons or anything like that. My Marvel knowledge is strictly the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And the identity of the Winter Soldier came as a complete surprise to me. And it took the movie in a whole new direction, but it was a good direction. It was a personal direction. It was an emotional direction. This movie just has this immersion factor that you don't find in a whole lot of other movies. So guys, obviously I would definitely recommend seeing Captain America the Winter Soldier. It is by far my favorite movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I am so excited for Captain America Civil War. I have been waiting for that for a long time. I will definitely review it when it comes out in a few months. Look forward to that. But until then, I'm going to give Captain America the Winter Soldier a 10 out of 10. Well guys, spoiler alert, I will be talking about my top 5 favorite scenes out of Captain America the Winter Soldier. Topping up the list at number 5, it is the museum scene. Now after learning that S.H.I.E.L.D. might not be as righteous as he thought they were, Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, goes out to an American History Museum to kind of find himself again. And it's kind of like a previously on Captain America kind of deal. You know, for those of you who haven't seen the first Captain America movie, it kind of fills in some of the gaps for you. It gives you a little bit of his backstory, it tells you a little bit about who he is, what he did way back in World War II. It gives you some good insight into his character, and directly after that, he goes to visit his old lover, Peggy Carter, who is now very, very old and riddled with dementia. They're talking and having a fairly casual conversation, and then out of nowhere she completely forgets that he was ever there. In the middle of the conversation, she looks at him as if he just walked in the room for the first time. And while Peggy is lying there sobbing her eyes out, Captain America just gets this look on his face, a look of just absolute despair, sadness. The shot lingers on his face after his last line of dialogue for that scene, and you see his face turn from a smile slowly into just probably the saddest look I have ever seen on a grown man before. And that's kind of the first stepping stone that helps you emotionally connect with Captain America. Coming in at number 4, we have the boat scene. Now this is the first action scene of the movie, and it is a great one. Captain America infiltrates this S.H.I.E.L.D. vessel that's been taken over by pirates, and he just goes in there and kicks the living shit out of them. There's a long tracking shot that goes along the side of the boat as Captain America is sprinting down the side. And as he's sprinting, he just knocks the guy right over the rails. It is great camera work. And you really see how Captain America has grown as a fighter, how innovative he gets. And then at the end, when he finally faces off against George St. Frickin' Pierre, it is great to watch. It is a great action scene with great choreography. And St. Pierre actually doesn't give that bad of a performance in this movie. His role is a small role, but it's kind of a table-turning kind of role. Number 3, we have the car chase. Now this is the first time that we really see Nick Fury do something really, really cool. He's in this big armored SUV, and agents of Hydra, which is basically a Nazi group, are trying to kill him. And from the start of the scene to the end of the scene, it is a ridiculous car chase through a crowded city, with a couple of lines of pretty ball-busting humor, badass weaponry, great cinematography. It's like the world's best car chase and then some. Number 2, we have the highway confrontation. Now this is the first time that you really see the Winter Soldier in action, and it is astounding. The suspense in this scene is tangible. I was gripping the edges of my seat, waiting, just waiting for someone to die because you can feel it like it's almost about to happen. And once Captain America and the Winter Soldier do finally face off, it is probably one of the best superhero fight scenes I've ever seen. It's not fast and flashy and acrobatic like Spider-Man or anything like that. It is grounded, it is realistic. Every punch feels like it has weight behind it. It looks like they're really hitting each other. Great long takes where you can see them doing these things. It does have a little bit of shaky cam, just a little bit of shaky cam, but it is tastefully done shaky cam. It adds a sense of disorientation to the fight scene. It adds grittiness and adrenaline to it. And it was just a lot of fun to watch. And then at the end of that scene, when you finally see that the Winter Soldier is Bucky Barnes, Captain America's long-lost friend, the whole movie turns around. It becomes much more personal, and you can kind of feel the tone of the movie change. And from that point on, you don't really know what to expect. Number 1, the climax of the movie. The big end fight scene where everything finally comes together and people die and, you know, planes are exploding and this, that, and the other. We get to see Falcon be a badass. We get to see Agent Hill be kind of a badass. And Captain America has his final confrontation with the Winter Soldier, finally knowing who he is, and it makes the fight have so much more impact, knowing that Captain America does not want to fight him. Just the look in his eyes whenever he looks at the Winter Soldier and says, "Please don't make me do this." It made the fight have so much more weight to it. And then at the end, when Captain America is trying to convince Bucky that they do know each other, because Bucky's mind was wiped, Bucky just starts beating the living hell out of him, saying that he's nothing but a mission. And Captain America comes back and says, "Then finish your mission. You're my friend, I am with you to the end of the line." But unfortunately, his efforts never really come full circle because unfortunately there's destruction around him and they end up falling into a lake. But as Captain America is falling off of this helicarrier into the water, the music cuts out, and then right before he hits the water, a really soft and morose kind of piano melody starts playing, and it is a complete contrast to the rest of the soundtrack of this movie, and it gives me chills every single time I hear it. It adds great emotional depth to this scene. And as Captain America is sinking into the water, you don't really know what's going to happen to him until you see that he's being dragged out of the water by Bucky, and he drops him there. And you can tell that Bucky knows that there is something there, he just doesn't know what it is, and so he walks away. And one of the end credit scenes is him standing in the American History Museum, kind of finding out about himself, finding out who he really is, but you don't know what's going to happen next because it cuts off right there. And that's just one of the things that makes me so excited for Civil War, because I want to see where they go with the character of Bucky Barnes. Well guys, obviously I love this movie. I could probably watch it at least once a week for the rest of my life if I could. So I'm curious, have you seen Captain America the Winter Soldier? If you have, comment below, let me know what you think about it, and I will see you in my next review.